Well, it really felt like the whole country was watching the Springboks triumph on Saturday night in the Rugby World Cup final. People thronged the streets to celebrate after that one-point victory. We're all on a bit of a high, as we were in 1995 and in other special sporting victories. But what is it about sport, or perhaps the South African psyche, that brings our country together in such a powerful way, even while we're facing such enormous challenges? Is it a one-off moment of joy, or a sign that some things are working remarkably well in South Africa and we're perhaps more unified than we think? I'm joined now by Professor Vasti Roodt from Stellenbosch University. She's the Director of Prosper Promoting Social and Political Ethics Research. Thank you so much for joining us. I couldn't help thinking as I was driving home on Saturday night after watching the match and seeing people in the street just rejoicing. It reminded me a lot of the 1995 World Cup victory. Back then we had something called Madiba magic. I think we also all hoped back then that this was a sign that we were more united and we were more similar, despite our cultural backgrounds, despite what apartheid did. And we were very hopeful. But from then till now, do you think we have become a more unified South Africa?
I suppose, as with many things in South Africa, the answer is yes and no. Memory is short, and we shouldn't underestimate where we came from. If you think back to 1993, to where we are now, in various respects, in our mutual relationships, in generally the openness of the country compared to the sort of enclosed and oppressive society that we came from. Yes, we are more united in our diversity. Of course, in other ways, the deep fault lines that lie in our history, the racial fault lines, the economic fault lines that come from our apartheid past, are still with us. But as you can see on your screen there, there is also something about living together in this country that, by hook or by crook, has kind of brought us closer together than we were 20 years ago.
I mean, I suppose the question really is, do these incredibly joyous moments actually promote a lasting unity, or inevitably fade away into not much at all?
So one must be careful not to think that feelings are enough. Feelings are not enough in romantic relationships, and they are also not enough, they are particularly not enough in political relationships. So they do fade. Think back to 2019 and pretty much a very similar team that won the World Cup there. Think of the joy that we experienced there, and think of those feelings. Where are they now? So on the one hand, feelings are not enough, and they do fade over time. Feelings need to become institutionalized. So there need to be institutional structures that make people's lives better and also make it easier for people to relate to one another as equal citizens. Having said that, I don't want to discount this marvelous experience that we had on Saturday. And I do think we have a bit of credit in the bank, for a while at least, to reimagine who we want to be, or what the best of us could look like as a society.
It's a good point. It's an inspiration, but it's also a bit of an example. I mean, the team is a transformed team. They speak isiXhosa and Afrikaans on the field. They're multicultural, and it's a reminder of what we should be and what we can be. But doesn't it also, and this is where I think it could be more powerful than perhaps we think, is that seeing a transformed rugby team, doesn't it erode a racist mindset? Because if you think of the detractors who had such a problem when black players started being put into the team, going, the black players don't know how to play, this is not going to work, the quotas, South African rugby is going to go down the tubes. And actually South African rugby has absolutely triumphed. Isn't this a concrete example of how multiculturalism and unity in diversity, as you say, actually is very powerful and very successful?
Yes, Sally, I agree with you. what is, I mean, the only way of countering the claim that transformation in sport, in business, in any aspect of life, the only way of countering the claim that that's somehow a disaster, it's going to lead to an erosion of standards and so on, is actually to see people performing in the places where they are now, to which they now have access. So in that sense, I think this Springbok team is a very powerful visual and visceral demonstration of what a a transformed sports team can look like, and where one can get to if you can draw on the talents of 60 million people rather than on the talent of a small subset of that 60 million people.
Yeah, and it's obviously not just drawing on the talent, but also supporting when that talent comes from an impoverished background. If we think of Siya Kolisi, an extremely poor family, if he didn't have the support, he might not have got this far in the sport, because behind every successful sports person, there's often a family that will take them to practice, that will buy them the shoes. And that's the other thing that I think has to be acknowledged in transformation. But just as we close, you said, feelings are not everything, and we all are feeling the feelings at the moment and feeling fantastic. What do we do with those feelings to build on them, to be more positive, to engender better unity? Because let's face it, things are tough here.
They are tough. So I think feelings should be translated into action. So the question that we have to ask ourselves as citizens is, well, what action lies in front of me now? What is within my immediate power? The one thing that is within all our immediate power is to register to vote and to go and vote, and to cast our vote in a thoughtful, considered way. So spend some time figuring out what are the possibilities out there, and think about how to cast your vote in a way that you make the best contribution that you can make to the future of the country.
Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. Really great to hear your views. Professor Vasti Roodt from Stellenbosch University. She's the Director of Prosper, Promoting Social and Political Ethics Research, reflecting on how we turn those good feelings into action. Well, here's something to bring us down to earth with a bump.